Hey guys, I'm back with another video, and as I mentioned in my last video, I will be doing story times about different things, about my family, about my children, and today I just want to talk about how I met my husband. It's a crazy story of how I met him, but I lived in Louisiana with my mom. I have my two sisters. They moved out here back in 2015. And so I was still staying with my mom and, helping her out, helping my dad and, things like that or whatever. And so my sisters, they asked me, they was like, hey, why don't you come and move out here? And I'm like, okay, because at the time I didn't have a job and I was looking for a job. But in Louisiana, they don't really have, too much of anything back in Louisiana. So I was like, okay, my sister and them, they already was established out here in Texas and, they had their apartment and things like that. So I decided to, just come out here and, moving with them until I got on my feet, find me a job and things like that. So I moved out here maybe at the end of 2015. So it's like maybe in December or November, one of the two. Anyways, so I moved out here and, they was already established and things like that. I, brought my stuff out here. I moved out here with them. And my purpose was, to come out here, and, look for me a job and, things like that so I could get on my feet. Of course, out there in Louisiana, I already had a church that was going to my mom and my dad's church. So it's not like I came out here to look for a church. But of course, because my sister was out here already, they already was going to a church, which just so happened to be my uncle's church, and he was the pastor of the church. So one particular Sunday, I just decided, to come to actually go to church with them. And, we got the church and it was, like any old other Sunday, we went to Sunday school and then the service started at the time. It started at 11 o'clock. So, we're going through praise and worship and things like that. And of course, I love praise and worship. As you get to know me, you know that I'm a singer. I'm still working on, all of that. And so, they was doing praise and worship. I was, into it and things like that. And it was me and my sister, my twin sister. And that's another story that I would have to tell you about my twin sister. But we was sitting in the back of the church. And, the pastor was coming up to preach. And it just so happened that I looked over and it was somebody, staring at us. And, in my thing, I'm thinking that, this person is staring at my sister. Because I'm not used to, people, wanted to talk to me before my sister. But anyways, yeah, this person, kept staring back and, he looked back and I looked like, okay, like, is he staring at me or is he staring at my sister? So I didn't think anything of it. And so, I told my sister at the church, I was like, did you see that? And she was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, there was this guy and he was, staring. I don't know who he was staring at, but first of all, he looked, way older than us. At the time, I was 25. We was 25. And I'm like, he's not looking at us. So, time carried on and maybe, 2 or 3 Sundays. But for some reason, that face just stuck in my head. And I'm like, Lord, I'm not coming down here for a relationship. I'm coming down here, to get a job, establish myself, trying to figure out what my career was and things like that. And so, you know, his face just kept popping up in my head, and I'm just like, like 2 or 3 Sundays passed by, and I didn't see him. Like, he came that Sunday, that first Sunday that I was there, and after that, you know, he didn't come for another, you know, 2 or 3 Sundays. So I'm like, well, you know, I guess it's not meant for anything to happen, because, you know, for him to just pop out the face of the earth like that is like, okay. So it was the 4th Sunday, and it was Family and Friends Day, and, you know, we was going back to church, and yet and behold, he popped up there. And again, it was the same thing. Me and my sister, you know, we got a little bit closer to the front, and, you know, he was still sitting on the other side of the church, and he just, you know, kept staring. And I finally, you know, nudged my sister, and I was like, look. And she was like, what? And I was like, this guy is staring at us. And, you know, he, you know, looked back, and, you know, I looked sideways, and I'm like, oh, no. Okay, let me focus on, you know, the message that you know, the pastor was preaching. And later on that day, I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, I need to talk to you. She was like, what is it, baby? And I was like, there's a guy at church, and I don't know what it is, but it's something about him, but I don't want to approach him because I don't know if it's the flesh, or is it, you know, something about him that, you know, God is trying to draw out of me to see. And so my mom told me, she was like, well, don't pursue him. You know, if it's meant for you guys to talk, he will come to you, and, you know, he'll talk to you and things like that. And, you know, me being the hard-headed person that I am, I did not listen. It just so happened that, you know, my sister, she was in her relationship, and me and my twin sisters, we decided to move. So at the time, you know, I'm just moving, you know, to Texas, so I'm not knowing anybody. So we go to church, and I tell my sisters, like, we need to find somebody to help us move. So I knew his mother-in-law, which I didn't know was his mother-in-law at the time. And so I was asking her, I was like, do you know, this guy and this and that? And she was like, yeah, that's my son-in-law. And I was like, okay, well, do you mind asking him, can he help us move? And she was like, yeah, sure. I'll ask him when I get back with you. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, or whatever. So later on that day, you know, me and her, we exchanged numbers at the church and things like that. So later on that night, after we got out of church, I had a phone call or a text message saying, hi, this is such and such, you know, and I heard that you needed someone to help you guys move. And I'm sitting there like, oh, Lord, what should I say? Should I say no? Should I say yes? And I'm like, yeah, we was, you know, wanting somebody to help us move and things like that. And, you know, I was just wondering if you can help me and, you know, my sister friend, you know, help us move. And he was like, sure. And then I was like, well, you know, I know this is your mom's phone, but, you know, just drop my number down, and, you know, we'll, you know, be able, you know, to communicate and things like that. So come back for part 2.